to be really intentional, like you said, about our environments, but you choose when you're going to do it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who go, man, I want to do this and this and one day and then at some point you just got to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. What's up, brother?
I'm glad you came out.
Man, listen, well, it's a new year, so I figure we'll be in a new environment. And ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, man, Happy New Year.
Happy
Glad
New
to
Year.
see you. It's
Yes, sir.
2025. Man.
Yes.
I can't believe that. And so we figured, it's a new year. Why not start in a new location?
Yeah.
And so for many of you who don't know, we are right now on set at the Reimagine Ranch. This is the home of my brother, Dr. Crow. And man, this is a beautiful property. And I'm excited about this podcast because we'll probably hear from a lot of our friends that are currently around.
Especially this time of day.
Yes.
They're usually getting fed somewhere around this time of day.
Yes.
So you can't see off camera, but we've got 4 donkeys over here, 2 over here, and the cows are just waiting for somebody to poke their head around the corner with some feed, and they'll start making noise.
Yes,
So.
and then on the back of the house we have a beautiful lake that's there, and everything. So, all right. So before we get started, man,
I huffed and puffed.
Yeah, I know this. Well,
an acre and a half of it's been tore up by the hogs. So.
Oh well, I mean, we're visionaries.
Yes,
so.
a lot of potential. a lot of potential.
Love it out here. Probably one of the most peaceful places I've been. And bro, y'all were in the city, like y'all lived right down the street from Disney.
Yeah.
And so what brought you out to Olstein?
Yeah, Olstein. Yeah, wasn't Joel.
It wasn't
Joel. Sorry, that's just too low hanging. That was
easy.
too easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Too easy. No, we lived on a street called Apopka Vineland, right there in the heart of Orlando for 17 years.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. But we just looked up and everything just was. There was no break. There was no separation of church and state. There was no. There was no some compartmentalization's good.
Yeah.
We didn't have any compartmentalization. Everything was just, and we knew we wanted our kids to be outside a lot.
Yeah.
And we had always, both Christina and I had always wanted to be out on land.
Yeah.
And it turns out that if you buy a house in a city, that if you sit on that house long enough and then you sell it and you're willing to drive far enough out, then things get a little cheaper.
Yeah.
And we were actually able to sell a house we owned there in the city and then move out to about 11 acres. We do live on water.
Yeah.
And we've got farmland around us. It's been beat up by the hurricanes, but looks a little apocalyptic right now. But it's still incredibly peaceful.
Yeah.
We got a lot of animals, a lot of nature. Our kids are outside all the time.
Yeah.
Don't really lock our doors.
Yeah.
It's just, we wanted that. My wife, I tell you what it really boils down to, because you're a driver, I'm a driver, but there's certain obsessions that we all lean towards. My wife wanted me to untether from this obsessiveness I had to always go, to always build, to always grow, to always reach when I pulled on this driveway.
Yeah.
So I always text her when I'm turning on our road, and I let her know, and so I make a commitment to the Lord that when I turn down that road driveway, which is our driveway is about a quarter mile long, but that quarter of mile last stretch to the house, I'm untethering from like work is good, and calling is good, but you also gotta have some other areas of your life, and that's what this was about for us.
Man, that's so good. And so being out here, now that you've been out, how long y'all been out here now?
5-6 years, something like
that. Wow, golly.
It's hard to believe,
Has it been that long?
Yeah, because we bought before the pandemic.
Okay, yeah.
So we were out here like 8-9 months before the pandemic hit.
Okay.
And it's been 5 years since.
Yeah, dang, that's time waits for no one.
Nobody does it.
Now, being out here, Brent, I think, because I don't want our listeners to miss that, just what has been gained. Being out here, like if you could speak to it from a leadership perspective and just as a person who, you are always on a plane in a meeting, leading our organization, doing great things around the world. Like, what have you gained as a leader, being kind of in a place where you can, to your point, kind of disconnect, and once you get on the road, what have you gained, and then what's been the benefit for your family?
Well, the benefit, I'll start with the family. The benefit for our family, when we moved here, we had 3 children. And we were open to the idea of adoption. God had put that in our heart years ago.
Remember it, yeah.
But we didn't have, living in Orlando, we didn't have any, nobody's, we got 1 dog, guys. Everybody shares it, and it's a hamster. But so there was not space was not your friend in a space, and when you're in a metropolitan area like that and living on a budget, those types of things, this gave us space we didn't even know we needed. So our house is big enough, and we had the space. We were literally, the Lord brought us out here family-wise to double the size of our family.
Yeah, wow.
And that became very clear about 8-9 months into our time out here. As you know, we've told that story.
Yeah.
As far as just life and leadership, as far as personal leadership and self-growth, things like that, it's given me a space to declutter from noise, which in turn has given me the opportunity to think both critically and more critically and creatively.
Yeah.
For example, when the pandemic hit, and everything was kind of DEFCON 5, and it was like, what are we going to do? And everybody did the same thing. Let's shut the doors. Everybody did that. You remember it was the summer of nothing.
Yeah, I remember.
And we decided, and I'm not saying we're better than anybody else, Jeff.
No, I get it.
I hope nobody reads into that. But we decided, no, we're just going to reimagine.
Yeah.
And we named this Reimagine Ranch.
Yep, I love that.
So it was a lot of late nights. I worked more during the pandemic and through the pandemic than I did outside of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I would say the Lord having us in this space allowed me to think critically and creatively to come up with a plan in which we went, okay, here's what we're going to do. I genuinely do credit being out here. Gave me the space to think critically and creatively. I'm not taking credit, but I'm saying somebody had to come up with that strategy.
Yeah.
And we went to work, and we saw a season of ministry that we're still feeling.
Yeah.
The impact of that. And
that's good.
And my children witnessed that.
Yeah.
I remember one of my daughters walking in my office at 1 o'clock in the morning. She'd woken up, couldn't go back to sleep, came downstairs to get something to drink. She goes, "Daddy, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just working."
Yeah.
She goes, "What are you working on?" I said, "I'm just trying to figure out how we get through this.
Yeah.
You know what's happening." And I went to bed a couple hours later and came back in my office the next day. And there was a little note from her, and I've kept it. And I look at it often, and it says, SLU will thrive, I think. Or she used the word thrive somehow.
Yeah.
As an 11-year-old.
Right.
But she's nerdy anyways. And it's going to be okay, Daddy. SLU's going to thrive.
Oh, I love it.
That's what she wrote.
So
and
good.
I just remember going, how does she know?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
So our kids witnessed all that.
Yeah.
They got that. We didn't retreat from something. Actually, coming out here gave us the opportunity to lean in more.
Man, it's so good.
So it's for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, it's like buying, people say when you buy a boat, it's a hole in the water you throw money into.
Yeah.
Having a little farm feels that way. Because I got fences down everywhere because of the hurricane season. We got to repair. We're chopping firewood left and right. Not that we need it in Florida, but from down trees. And I got hog problems, and I'm always like, I was out at midnight last night shooting at hogs, so
I love it, man.
It sounds redneck, and it is.
I love it, man, but I think there's so much, man, as we step into this new year.
Yeah.
I think there is so much that we can even take from that. Not that everybody has to buy 10 acres on a lake and do that, but I think there is something, Brent, about being intentional with your life to the extent where you're willing to invest it all. Yeah. To put yourself in a place where you're like, man, I want to be the best version of myself. I want my family to be the best version of themselves. I want to be healthy. I want us to be whole. And I want to do whatever it can to cultivate those creative juices for me as a leader, man.
Here's the thing. You choose we got to choose, be really intentional, like you said, about our environments, but you choose when you're going to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of people who, and we were guilty of this for a lot of years, and again, not saying we're better than anybody,
yeah.
But there's a lot of people who go, man, I want to do this and this, and one day, and that. At some point, you just got to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And credit to my wife for doing that. But, years ago I read, Seth Godin wrote, and I think the book Lynchpin, if it doesn't ship, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
And so at some point, it's not going to feel, it's never going to feel perfect.
Yeah.
But at some point, you got to pull that trigger. At some point, you got to ship it.
Yeah.
And so we just did it.
Yeah.
And we planned a lot and prepared a lot, but you can never be fully prepared, I don't think. And that's the thing. Whatever it is for your next step in your leadership journey and positioning yourself to maximize your impact for the glory of God.
Yeah.
At some point, you're just gonna have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
At some point, you just can't be passive. And to me, a lot. That's what Reimagine Ranch represents for us. Because if we would have kept waiting, hesitating, we would have never fully realized the dream that God had for us. Which was our family. And doubling the size of our family. And maybe never be able to think our way through some of these challenges that we face in our society, is how our ministry fits, things like that. So, Brian, how much time we got?
You can keep going.
Okay, let's. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're on Reimagine Ranch. Our whole life's about story and creativity, and and I know you've thought creatively. This is January 2nd.
It is.
Where are my Georgia Bulldogs?
Yeah.
Getting ready for the big game tonight. Yes, sir. Yeah. But you think a lot about your year. You take stock and you go, and I've had a lot of preaching assignments lately where people want me to focus on, okay, we're coming to the end of a season, we're going to start a new season. That's what, so much of Christmas and New Year's becomes. But what have you, I don't want to know what you've learned. That's so typical. How are you going to be a better version of yourself?
Right.
All that's good.
Yeah.
But I told a church this past Sunday, why would you settle for self-improvement when God's called you to mission and miraculous? So what would you say is, I'll call it an aha moment, an aha this past year about God that's going to, something he's taught you about himself, or about you and your family, whatever it might be, that you're going to go, that changes the way I think about 2025.
Yeah.
I'm walking into 2025 with this different mindset because God revealed himself to me or showed me somebody's character. Or what?
Well,
I know we both have those. I got one. I know you got one.
Well, I got several, but one from a ministry standpoint and what we do here, aha moment when we were sitting in and I don't know if you remember this, Nashville Airport.
Yeah, I remember.
And we're just sitting here, and we're always having conversations
because we walked by the donut place.
We did.
Because we were like, if we go sit there, we're not just going to have coffee. And we went to the next one over. Voodoo Donuts or whatever it was.
Yes. Oh, the Lord was there. That's the only time you say the Lord's and voodoo together. But I remember us having a conversation and we're always dreaming, and you're always asking me some great questions about, man, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
What really kind of, I can't remember how you framed it, but it was like, what really kind of just gets you going? I know you say I can do a lot of things, but what are those things that you really want to do?
Yeah.
And I think, as we were
what wakes you up and keeps you up?
Wakes me up and keeps me up. That's it. Yes. And I remember we were talking about, just everything, even around just sunsetting, lift tour possibilities and all that stuff. And I hadn't even thought about it until you asked me. And so I went home and we talked more about it, but I went home, Brent, and I honestly, that night, I remember getting into my home office and I closed my door for a little while and I began to pray and journal. And I began to really kind of ask myself that question, what really, wakes me up and everything. And I think that it was that moment where I realized where, I'm doing a lot of stuff, but am I really doing what is the mission of God for my life? And, am I maximizing the mission of God for my life?
How can you uniquely contribute?
Exactly. Yeah. And that was an aha moment. It was something simple. It was within the realm of what we're doing as a ministry and as an organization, wanting to make sure that we're really loving on students and our gatekeepers and everything and doing things with excellence. But it was more about, for me, as a part of not just the team, but just what story do I want to tell with my life,
right?
In this season of my life.
Right.
And so that was an aha moment of really kind of stepping back and saying, I can do many things, but am I really living on the mission?
Yeah,
doing the mission of God.
Right.
And so for me, that was a moment, man, where I really was stretched and challenged. And, you know, we talked about just being here at the Reimagine Ranch and kind of stepping back. You know, obviously I don't live in the acres. You know, I live in the busyness of Windermere.
Hey, there's a property for sale.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, you got to talk.
I'll kill all the the lizards.
Yeah, you know, the lizards. She called them Lennies. But that was for me, Brent, a moment when I really I stepped back.
Yeah.
And really asked myself, you know, I know I'm doing good work,
right?
But am I living on missions for God?
Right.
You know, and so that was probably one significant aha moment. Because you know me, I struggled in that conversation.
Yeah.
Because you know I wasn't looking at it from the lens in which you were asking.
Yeah.
I was looking at it. I was measuring the question based on a lot of different factors, you know, of my own personal leadership and, you know, where have I missed the mark or, you know, whatever. And so I wasn't looking at it through the lens in which you were asking the question.
Wow.
And so when I really looked at it from a missional standpoint, being on mission with God and wanting to be on mission with God, I knew that I'm called to the ministry of SLU. But how am I being on mission with God?
Yeah.
In partnership with my calling to be here at
Use
SLU.
those gifts.
Yeah. So that for me was a big that conversation there in Nashville Airport. Huge for me.
I'm grateful for that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Love what you're doing, brother.
Yeah. So, you know, we were sitting here, man. We're out here at the ranch and everything. And I love what you talked about as far as just the purpose of being here. But, you know, Brent, as we walk into this new year, bro, like, I did not know that there's this research out here.
I know what you're about to say.
Yeah. Which is said the second Friday of every year.
Yeah.
Is National Quitters.
Yeah.
And you talked about never pulling the trigger, you know, I mean, being there in, you know, there where you guys were and just saying, man, at some point you just gotta rip the Band-Aid off and pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking as we're starting this new year, man, and how there's research that says that, you know, over 80% of Americans will set New Year's resolutions.
Those are the dumbest things on the planet.
They'll set goals.
Yeah.
But by the second Friday of the year, which is January 10th this year, they're done. It's done.
Yeah.
And so people start a lot of things.
Yeah.
But they don't finish.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I thought it'd be great, man, just as a way of just a quick encouragement.
Yeah.
Of encouraging people, man, you know, maybe the way that we set ourselves on the right path this year.
Yeah.
Is that we don't set goals and resolutions, but we set our minds on saying, God, I want to get on mission, to steal your phrase. I want to make sure that my life I want to be on mission for you.
Yeah. Because
I think it's a different mindset when we understand, like, man, goals. We could sit here
and they're important.
Yeah, they are.
We're not just throwing shade on goals.
No. Because we have them. Yeah, we have measurements, we have goals, objectives, all this. So I'm not saying that, but I think sometimes we all do this. Not we all, but a lot of people do this, where it's like, okay, the 31st, this is the last piece of sweet potato pie. See, I used to do that.
I still got some Christmas little tree cake, Little Debbie's in there.
Yes, yeah,
you know, I'm hanging on to those.
Well, and I still have the rest of my cake, my sweet banana.
If you know, you know.
Well,
and to what you're saying, Jeff, I just two quick comments as we close out. One, you can't reimagine the future if you don't create the margin.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we look at a new year, it's an act of both critical and creative thinking, but a lot of creative thinking when you're looking at your new year.
Yeah.
And the stuff you want to do, you can't do if you don't create the margin to do it. I know that's so basic and simple.
Yeah.
But without margin, there's no imagining.
Yeah.
And so you gotta create the margin to it. Number two, and this is easy to say, and it's tough to execute.
Yeah. Okay.
But you've got to ask the question: what are the rhythms that I need to get to 1 year from now.
Yeah.
To be and so that 1 year from now, that year was stamped by mission and was stamped by the miraculous, was stamped by God petitioning God to open up the window of heaven and pour out a blessing until there was no more need. So I'm always for rhythm over resolution.
Yeah.
And so what are the rhythms that need to be in place? Because rhythms have a natural, once you do them long enough, they have a natural pull.
Yeah.
Resolutions don't.
Right.
They're a moment in time.
Yeah.
Rhythm is how you use time.
Yeah.
And so number one, create the margin. And then number two, create the rhythm. Number three is just a good old kick in the pants. You got to execute it. That's Iceman. Hey, Iceman. That's not Princess Leia.
No, that's not Princess. That's Iceman.
Hey, buddy.
I love it.
He's our Jack. He's the one that gets all the ladies pregnant.
Okay.
Sweetest Jack I've ever seen or been around, but he's as sweet as he can be.
Yeah. Jesus.
It's like, come feed me, man. Because the ladies won't let him eat.
Yeah.
Like, I have to distract them and give him a treat. Because they're like, he's only good for one thing, so they kick him out. They only bond a little bit.
They only bond a little bit, then they're like, yeah, we have nothing for you.
So rhythm over resolution.
Right.
But you got to create the margin to imagine. Yeah. And then you've got to have the stick-to-itness to execute well.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Yeah. And I National Quitters Day is, listen, I think part of our rhythm should be what needs to be eliminated from our lives.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll say this, and in our next maybe conversation I could talk about it a little more, but if you want me to, but is I'm convinced that the reason a lot of people never see the miraculous is because they never make the margin. They never create the margin.
Yeah.
Like, I think that some people will go their whole life without seeing God do something really big because they're too busy being busy.
That's it right there.
And so that's why the first step has to be create the margin.
Yeah.
Create the margin to imagine, then create the rhythms, not the resolutions, and then execute with stick-to-itness and grit and determination by the right motivation.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add is have somebody in your life that can keep you accountable to it. Yeah. I think doing life alone is a bad thing.
Yeah, it is.
So, well, ladies and gentlemen, glad you got a chance to experience, literally experience the Reimagine Ranch. Hey, it's going to be a phenomenal year. We have some great surprises, great interviews that we're going to be doing throughout the year. And so I hope you will go on this journey with us throughout 2025. And so until next week.
Wander well, shine like stars.
Peace.